to take you back to 1988. I was 17, just graduated from high school. Please don't do the math. I'm still coming to terms with my age. And at 17, I didn't know what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be when I grew up, but I did know one thing. I wanted the hell out of the cult. You see, I got to be raised in this wonderful religious cult. And along with, the typical things with cults, we got to experience things like segregation, right? Because they like to kind of, segregate people. So all through school, I was that kid standing out in the hall for the Lord's Prayer and the national anthem, back in the day when they had those. And the kids were always like, "Why are you standing out in the hall? What are you doing that for?" And I was that kid that, we're doing the holiday art, and I get to do something different. And the kids are like, "How come you can't paint a picture of Santa? Why does your mommy make you do that?" And then, later on when I was in high school, because I wasn't allowed to associate with anybody outside of school, I chose to hang out with the nerdy kids. And it's not that I couldn't make friends with anybody, but the nerdy kids didn't have parties that I would have to say no to. So that's who I picked. And then along with every good cult also comes abuse. Isn't that great? It always goes hand in hand. So my family was great. They decided that, we're really good Christians, and so we're not going to talk about the abuse. We're just going to sweep all that under the rug. All that stuff that happened with your brother, no, we're not going to talk about that. And your stepmother, treating you like Cinderella, no, we're not going to talk about that. Don't tell anyone. We're a really good family. So there was lots of stuff going on, and I knew that I needed out. So not only was the religion crazy, but my family was crazy. But here I was at 17, and I had no other resources. I had no other support. But I just knew that I had to get out. I didn't know what I wanted instead, but I knew that for me, I had to leave. So I spent the next 20 years going for counseling. I did a lot of therapy. We did the group counseling, we did the individual counseling, and I even did a stint with AA and Al-Anon and ACA and all those great places. And I got to the point where I was like a functioning adult. I was a survivor. Yeah! Yeah, this survivor who was angry at the world, who couldn't ever relax. And I was never comfortable in my own skin. But for some reason, this was like as good as it gets. And I'm like, there's something wrong here. This doesn't work for me. So, even though I went to school, I got my RMT, I built up a good practice, things are going well. I'm like, there's something missing. Wasn't quite sure what it was, but okay, keep going. So about 1999, I had somebody come into my practice, and she disclosed to me on that first session that she was into kink. S&M, and for those of you who don't know either of those terms, think 50 Shades of Grey. So she disclosed this to me so that if I saw bruises or marks, then I wasn't going to be alarmed. And this was great. It was like something peaked. I was like, what is that about? So each month when she'd come in, I'd ask her more questions. I'm like, so how does that work? And well, what about this? And she was great. She really shared. She just openly shared what it was for her, and just dispelled all the myths, and at the same time always piquing my curiosity. I want to know more. I want to know more. Now, unfortunately, I was in a bad relationship, A lot of us have been through those. The first time round was a practice run. Yeah. 11-year practice run. So it wasn't a relationship that I could explore this kink for myself. But in 2006, I finally left that relationship. First thing I do, call up my friend, client. Okay, where's the nearest party? Because I'm in. Let me get some gear and I am in. So I dive in, and now I had been finding some people and talking on kind of a social level, so I knew lots of people that were going, which was great because I had lots of people who were going to keep an eye on me and keep me safe. And I did. I dove right into this world, and I found play partners, and I had all kinds of experiences. And one of the best things was that I found somebody who took me on a magical journey. One in which might seem really crazy, but we reenacted the abuse. And in a way that was allowed me to re-experience it in my body, but create a new outcome. And that changed things for me. It actually allowed it to get out of my cells and out of my body. And after 3 or 4 sessions like this, I felt free. For the first time, I actually was able to relax. I was comfortable. I stopped being on guard all the time. And I was like, oh, this is what it feels like for everybody else. This is pretty cool. And as a result of that, I actually changed. I changed who I was, and I didn't have a taste for being on the submissive side. So I think what happened was that I, healed that piece, but I still had an interest in the kink. So I moved over to the dominatrix side. And I really wanted to take all of this wonderful healing journey that I had been on and to take other people through that process and to help them to get really connected to their body. And I know for a lot of people, when you think kink, you think sex. But I want to dispel that myth. Dominatrix is not about sex. It's actually about getting people really connected with their bodies, and it takes them into a spiritual journey instead. So this was really a big passion for me. I was having so much fun. It was such a high. Fast forward about 4 years, and then this wonderful community of friends that I had built, some people started to stir some shit. Thank you for giving me permission to swear. Louise knows me. And so there was just a lot of stuff that was stirred up in that community, people spreading rumors, saying stuff, and I was also kind of getting frustrated with some of the games, because you get into a community and people start to, right? So I left, packed up all my toys, put them into the toy box, and closed the lid, shut down my dungeon, and I stepped into the world of energy. And I started to discover that I could take people on the same journey with energy that I did with the whips, which is really cool because I'm kind of the lazy dominatrix. I have to be honest, it's a lot of work to beat people, right? If you haven't done it, it's a lot of work. And, over the last 3 years, I have really put myself out here. That my theme and what I'm doing is allowing people to step in and find their inner dominatrix. And coming back to when I was a kid and that whole segregation thing, right? I got a lot out of that training, of constantly having people ask me, what do you do? Why are you doing that? Why are you using that word? I got comfortable as a kid having to constantly explain. But the thing is that as a kid, that wasn't my journey. That wasn't my choice. And so it was more of a chore to tell people why I was doing what I was doing. And sometimes I'd just be like, oh, because my parents are idiots. But now, when I explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and why I'm so passionate about it, it's my journey. It's my passion. And it's my love. And while, for some people, sometimes when I stand up in a room and I say, so I'm a former dominatrix, it's kind of a parting at the Red Seas sometimes. You get the people on one side, they're like, I'm all good. I like my husband, thank you. But the piece that excites me is the people on the other side who are like, ooh, you do what? Tell me about that. Can we step outside and talk about that privately? But it's really about coming back to doing what works for me. So just like when I was 17 and I left that religion for me, stepping in and claiming my inner dominatrix and standing in this space of owning the fact that this is my platform, this is what I do, is about doing what works for me. And I'm willing to risk the rejection in order to have the reward.